Hey, listeners, before we dive into today's episode, we want to hear from you.
We are doing a special Bible Answers episode in December, and we want to tackle the questions you've been wondering about from the last 16 seasons, whether it's something you've been curious about for years or something that just came in your own reading. Nothing is off limits.
Head over to BibleBookClubPodcast.com/contact. Fill out the contact form and send us your question. And here's the fun part. If we choose your question for the episode, our producer, Haley, will reach out to get your sweatshirt size because we're sending you a BBC sweatshirt as a thank you.
So this is your chance, and have fun with this one. We can't wait to hear what's on your mind.
And hopefully we can answer it.
We will be able to answer it. And now, today's episode. This is the Bible Book Club,
the book of Nehemiah.
Welcome to the club. Last episode, in chapter 2 of Nehemiah waited patiently for an opportunity to talk to the king about his people and their dire situation. While he waited, Nehemiah prepared for what he would say and how he would say it. Then, when the opportunity came, the king asked him, "What is it you want?" Nehemiah was then ready, and the king was moved to grant him even more than he had asked for. Nehemiah set off for Jerusalem to put his plan into action. But before revealing his plan to the people, he gathered intel for himself by studying the wall alone. The opposition got word of Nehemiah's presence, his papers of permission from the king, and of his plans to rebuild. And they did not like it. They began their attack with ridicule.
Well, we ended chapter 2 with Nehemiah laying out his case to the people of Jerusalem. This is what he said.
"You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace."
To which the people responded,
"Let us start rebuilding."
In this chapter, the people will, in a rare but inspirational act of solidarity, do just that. Was it really that simple? Or was there more to this wall? Why did Nehemiah say they were in disgrace? Well, before we dive into the building, I want to talk about why there was more to the wall than physical safety. In episode 1, we read that Nehemiah's distress about the wall consumed him for days, to the point that he could do nothing but weep and pray. Then in episode 2, he asked the king for resources for the wall. He examined the wall himself for 3 days. Then he recruited the people to rebuild the wall. Why? Why would God place an entire book in the Bible primarily about a wall? Certainly, some of his concerns were for the people's safety. In those days, cities built walls to protect inhabitants from the lawlessness of the land. Without the wall, the returned exiles were vulnerable to enemy attack. Safety was a significant concern, but I believe there was more to Nehemiah's grief than the people's physical safety. And some of his concern was that it was disgraceful. Nehemiah actually used the word saying they would no longer be in disgrace if they rebuilt the wall. A city without walls was seen as a sign that God had abandoned his people. In ancient times, a lack of divine favor from whatever God you claimed was an invitation to attack. And because of their vulnerability, they would have been treated as inferior and looked down upon. In other words, disgrace. But there is more to the story behind Nehemiah's passion for the wall. Years before Nehemiah's time, King Solomon built the temple as the dwelling place of God. So stay with me here. The Lord promised the Israelites in 1 Kings 6 that if they would follow his decrees, he would live among them in the temple. Upon the temple's completion in 1 Kings 8, the cloud descended and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. This promise meant so much to the Israelites. It meant communion with God. However, they struggled with obedience, and the consequence became clear. In 2 Kings 25, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded Israel, destroyed the temple, and carried many of the Israelites out of the promised land and into captivity. At this point, In our story, the Israelites are in recovery mode, trying to reclaim that promise, including land, communion with God, and the future king who will save them. So Zerubbabel returned and rebuilt the temple. Ezra returned and rebuilt the people spiritually. However, with the wall and gates destroyed, the people were in danger. And without the wall, the rebuilt temple that Zerubbabel rebuilt was at risk. Without the temple, the people's relationship that Ezra had rebuilt with God was at risk. Without God, the people's eternal salvation was at risk. Their hope, their eternal future, and the heart of who they were wrapped up in their ability to commune with God in that temple. I believe Nehemiah was deeply grieving not only for the physical safety of his people, but for the heart of his people. He was grieving not just for their earthly life, but also for their eternal life. Nehemiah was upset because the wall was needed to protect the heart of his people, the temple, the dwelling place of God, which lay in ruins. What about us today? You see, God no longer dwells in the temple of the Israelites. We're told by Paul, the Apostle Paul,
in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16, don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit lives in you?
God dwells in the hearts of his people. In Nehemiah's day, God resided in the temple. Therefore, the protection of the temple as a place of worship and relationship with God was paramount. Today, God resides in the temple of the body. Hence, every person, every child is a potential dwelling place for God. That means you, your spouse, your children, your extended family, your neighbors, your coworkers, and on and on. If God lives in the heart, there is communion with God. If there is communion, there is hope for a future eternally. The temples that need to be protected today are the hearts around you, especially those you have the most influence with, your family. The foundation for all those temples is being laid in the home, your home. And if the foundation of those you love is to grow strong, it must be protected from attack. There must be walls and gates to keep it safe. So think about it. While we should be concerned about the earthly life of those we love, we should also be deeply passionate about their eternal life. How can you be a strong wall and a wise gatekeeper? Perhaps God is calling you to be Nehemiah for someone at risk from the world. Or perhaps God is revealing to you that you need to guard your own heart. Every heart needs protection. Every heart needs a wall. The enemy would like nothing more than to break down your walls and attempt to destroy the temple that lives in you.
One of the things that I love best about Nehemiah and the way in which he did that, it was in such a non-judgmental way. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, hey, you guys are sinning. You know, the prophets would come and be like, you guys are sinning and you're going to die. He just came in and was like, hey, let's do this. We can do this so that we won't be in disgrace. We can do this. Come on, let's do it. And then they followed him.
Yep.
It was encouraging.
He had a calling and he was all about it. And he wanted everyone in building. Yeah. Back to our story. Nehemiah was called to build the wall to protect his people and provide them with a future. That future was dependent on their physical safety and their relationship with the Lord, which was dependent on the temple, God's dwelling place. To complete his mission, Nehemiah begins the project of his life very strategically by building the wall in sections corresponding to each of the city's gates. Scene 1, the sheep gate.
Eliashib, the high priest, and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. They dedicated it and set its doors in place, building as far as the Tower of the 100, which they dedicated, and as far as the Tower of Hananel. The men of Jericho built the adjoining section, and Zakur, son of Imri, built next to them.
So the building began, this is so strategic, with those who should be most concerned about the future of the people. And it was not the governor, it was the priests. because their spiritual relationship with God was even more important than their physical safety. And the high priest, Eliashib, leads the way. Now, Eliashib means God restores, and part of his restoration of the people involves protecting them physically and spiritually by setting the tone and personally taking part in the physical labor on the wall. His presence was a message to the people that the priests endorsed this project and that they believed God was behind it. Now, they started with the sheep gate for a reason. I love this. It was special to the priests and therefore to the people, and that's why the priests rebuilt it. The sheep gate was located on the northeast side of the city near the temple. It was called the sheep gate because all the lambs for sacrifice were brought through this gate to the temple courts. I hope you're getting kicked back to Moses and, the blood over the doorpost. So the sacrifice of these lambs was central to the atonement of sin necessary for the relationship with God. And therefore, starting with this gate held deep spiritual meaning for them. And that is why they consecrated this gate to God. This involved, smearing oil or blood on it. This was the only gate they consecrated. After the sheep gate, Nehemiah describes the repair and rebuilding moving counterclockwise from the sheep gate around the city.
I think this is one of the things that's also brilliant about Nehemiah. He finds what people are passionate about so that way they're self-motivated instead of him having to motivate them. It's very smart.
They all had an investment in what he puts them to work on.
Yeah.
Scene 2, the fish, Jeshanah, Valley, and Dung Gates.
Verse 3, the fish gate was rebuilt by the sons of Hassenaah. They laid its beams and put its doors and bolts and bars in place. Merimoth, son of Uriah, the son of Hakos, repaired the next section. Next to him, Meshullam, son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabel, made repairs. And next to him, Zadok, son of Baanah, made repairs. The next section was repaired by the men of Tekoa, but their nobles would not put their shoulders to the work under their supervisors.
The fish gate was in the northwest corner, so we're moving counterclockwise. It was called the fish gate because the merchants brought fish from Tyre or the Sea of Galilee through it to the fish market. The gate sometimes is also referred to as the Ephraim gate. Apparently, in this group of builders, there were some dissenters from the men of Tekoa. These were nobles who refused to work hard or even at all. There are always a few in every group.
Continuing in verse 6. The Jeshanah gate was repaired by Joiada, son of Paasah, and Meshullam, son of Besodiah. They laid its beams and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. Next to them, repairs were made by men from Gibeon and Mizpah, Meltiah of Gibeon and Jadon of Merinoth, places under the authority of the governor of Trans-Euphrates. Uziel, son of Harahiah, one of the goldsmiths, repaired the next section, and Hananiah, one of the perfume makers, made repairs next to that. They restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Raphiah, son of Hur, ruler of half-district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section. Adjoining this, Jediah, son of Haramath, made repairs opposite his house, and Hattush, son of Hashabaniah, made repairs next to him. Malchijah, son of Haram, and Hashub, son of Pahath-Moab, repaired another section and the Tower of the Ovens. Shallum, son of Haloesh, ruler of half district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section with help of his daughters.
The Jeshanah gate in this section of the wall highlights the efforts of people from all walks of life. The men of Gibeon and Mizpah, these were ordinary men who came to help. Business owners invested, including perfumers, goldsmiths, and merchants. Families worked on the walls and gates. Fathers, sons, and daughters are mentioned. Even leaders became builders, including politicians and rulers.
Verse 13, the valley gate was repaired by Hanan and the residents of Zanoah. They rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. They also repaired 1,000 cubits of the wall as far as the dung gate. The dung gate was repaired by Malchijah, son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth Hakerem. He rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place.
The Valley Gate was on the west side of the city. This is where Nehemiah began his exploration, his covert one, in chapter 2. The Dung Gate was at the southern tip of the city, so we're moving down. This gate, appropriately named, was the opening to the city dump. After the Dung Gate, Nehemiah moved to the east side of the city. Scene 3, wall repairs around the fountain and water gates.
Verse 15. The fountain gate was repaired by Shallun, son of Kol-Hoseth, ruler of the district of Mizpah. He rebuilt it, roofing it over and putting its doors and bolts and bars in place. He also repaired the wall of the pool of Siloam by the king's garden, as far as the steps going down from the city of David. Beyond him, Nehemiah, son of Azbuk, ruler of a half-district of Beth Zor, made repairs up to the point opposite the tombs of David, as far as the artificial pool and the house of the heroes. Next to him, the repairs were made by the Levites under Rehum, son of Bani. Beside him, Hashabiah, ruler of half the district of Keliah, carried out repairs for his district. Next to him, the repairs were made by their fellow Levites under Binnui, son of Henadad, ruler of the other half district of Keliah. Next to him, Ezer, son of Jeshua, ruler of Mizpah, repaired another section from a point facing the ascent to the armory as far as the angle of the wall. Next to him, Baruch, son of Zabbai, zealously repaired another section from the angle to the entrance of the house of Eliashib, the high priest. Next to him, Merimoth, son of Uriah, the son of Hakoz, repaired another section from the entrance of Eliashib's house to the end of it. The repairs next to him were made by the priests from the surrounding region. Beyond them, Benjamin and Hashub made repairs in front of their house. And next to them, Azariah, son of Maaseiah, son of Anaiah, made repairs beside his house. Next to him, Binnui, son of Henadad, repaired another section from Azariah's house to the angle and the corner. And Palal, son of Uzai, worked opposite the angle and the tower projecting from the upper palace near the court of the guard. Next to him, Pedaiah, son of Perosh, and the temple servants living on the hill of Ophel made repairs up to a point opposite the water gate toward the east and the projecting tower. Next to them, the men of Tekoa repaired another section from the great projecting tower to the wall of Ophel.
Okay, the fountain gate was located on the southeastern section of the wall, near the pool of Siloam. It was connected to the Gihon spring indirectly through Hezekiah's tunnel, which we learned about back in Kings, which channeled the water from the spring in the Kidron Valley underground to the pool of Siloam inside the city walls. The water gate was also on the eastern wall, directly above the Gihon spring itself, near the ridge on the Temple Mount. Because remember, Israel's kind of built on this plateau high up. Unlike the fountain gate, the water gate's connection to the Gihon pool was at surface level. So people walked down to collect water versus the Hezekiah's tunnel. They had to go down this ladder because it was kind of in a tunnel. Now, the area, including the fountain and water gates, was extremely important. Both were targets for enemies desiring to cut off the water supply to the city, water that was necessary for the lives in the community and water that was necessary for ritual. Now, back in the day of Kings, the reason they built that Hezekiah temple and everything is because so much water was necessary to fill the Bronze Sea, which was that huge basin that Solomon had built, which replaced Moses's smaller bronze basin. So they had built this tunnel and they had access to the pool to get all that water up for ritual Now, the bronze sea and everything was carried off. We don't know what happened to it.
When the temple was destroyed the first time.
When everything was destroyed. Yeah. But they're still going to do this ritual. They're still going to have these rituals. So it makes sense in rebuilding the wall that the Levites are mentioned as the builder of this section of the wall. This section was crucial to the priests and the Levites serving in the temple. Without water, there would be no ritual purification. Without ritual, there would be no atonement for sin. Without atonement, there would be no relationship with God. So the priests and Levites took responsibility for the most damaged and vital area of the wall, protecting Jerusalem's water supply. At this point, we have circled around Jerusalem from the Sheep Gate on the north side of the city, down the west side, around the southern point, up the east side, and we are approaching the northeast corner of the wall. So we're almost to our starting point. Scene 4, wall repairs around the horse and east gate.
Verse 28. Above the horse gate, the priests made repairs, each in front of his own house. Next to them, Zadok, son of Emer, made repairs opposite his house. Next to him, Shemaiah, son of Shechaniah, the guard at the east gate, made repairs. Next to him, Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hanan, the sixth son of Zalpa, repaired another section. Next to them, Meshullam, son of Berechiah, made repairs opposite his living quarters.
The horse gate led to an area of homes located just below the Temple Mount. Those that lived nearby, priests and people, repaired the area because, of course, it protected them. Now, the east gate was rather special and mysterious. Mysterious because it was difficult to locate years later because it became buried underground. And it cannot be excavated because Muslim authorities have curtailed archaeological work on the Temple Mount. On top of that, the gate can be mysteriously confusing because it has a number of names: East Gate, Golden Gate, Gate of Mercy, Shushan Gate. Now, the gate is special because of what it represents and where it is located. The gate faces the front of the temple. The temple faces east, and the east gate is located directly east of the temple and right in front of the Temple Mount. That alone makes it important. But the importance of east is also symbolic. Now, stay with me here. We're going way back for some history and possibly what I hope is a Bible bender. It certainly was for me. When Adam and Eve sinned, this is what happened.
In Genesis 3, starting in verse 23. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life.
So after Adam and Eve's sin, God drove out the man from the garden and placed cherubim with a flaming sword at the east of the garden to guard the way to the tree of life. So to get back in, you got to go west. This implies the garden's exit was on its eastern side, so the couple was sent eastward away from Eden. From their new vantage point, east of Eden, the garden, and symbolically their lost access to God's presence, would lie to the west. Later, Cain is exiled even further east to the land of Nod in Genesis 4:16. And then in Genesis 11, the people moved further east and their sin grew so much that they built the Tower of Babel. All of these reinforce a theme. Moving east means moving away from God. So east represents symbolically exile and separation. Bottom line is that the further east man went, the greater their separation from God. Now, the prophecy of Ezekiel adds more to the concept of exile and separation in the east. We discussed this in the last podcast season of Ezra when we talked about the cloud or lack of it filling the rebuilt temple when it was completed. Remember, Ezekiel had a vision that the cloud of the Lord's glory had departed from the temple. Note the direction of the cloud of glory of the Lord's departure?
Ezekiel chapter 10, starting in verse 4. Then the glory of the Lord rose above the cherubim and moved to the threshold of the temple. The cloud filled the temple, and the court was full of the radiance of the glory of the Lord. Then continuing down in 10:18, then the glory of the Lord departed from over the threshold of the temple and stopped above the cherubim. While I watched, the cherubim spread their wings and rose from the ground, and as they went, the wheels went with them. They stopped at the entrance of the east gate of the Lord's house, and the glory of the God of Israel was above them. And then continuing down in chapter 11, verse 22, then the cherubim with the wheels beside them spread their wings, and the glory of the God of Israel was above them. The glory of the Lord went up from within the city and stopped above the mountain east of it.
In Ezekiel chapters 10 and 11, during visions of judgment on Jerusalem for idolatry, like Ezekiel seeing this vision in his head, the glory of God progressively departs from the temple. It lifts from the cherubim in the inner sanctuary, moves to the temple threshold, which would have been east, then to the east gate of the temple courtyard, what we're talking about, that east gate, and finally hovers over the east gate before exiting the city entirely, moving toward the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem. This signifies God's withdrawal of his protective presence, leading to the city's destruction and the Babylonian exile. So Ezekiel had this whole vision before the exile. God's glory leaving eastward symbolizes his abandonment of the city. Conversely, west represents approaching God or restoration. Moving west often implies moving toward God or future hope. The tabernacle and temple were oriented with entrances facing east. So worshipers entered from the east and progressed westward toward the Holy of Holies. This meant approaching God involved a westward journey, symbolically reversing that exile from the Garden of Eden where they lived in the presence of God. All right, stay with me. There's more. Later, Ezekiel had another vision describing the glory of the Lord returning through the east gate, moving west toward the temple, symbolizing he's approaching God. Listen to this.
Ezekiel chapter 43. Then the man brought me to the gate facing east, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roar of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. The vision I saw was like the vision I had seen when he came to destroy the city, like the visions I had seen by the Kebor River. And I fell face down. The glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gate facing east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me into the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple.
So in Ezekiel 43, he's coming back in a vision of a future restored temple. Now the glory returns from the east through the east-facing gate, filling the temple. Immediately after, in Ezekiel 44, the gate is sealed shut because the Lord God of Israel has entered by it, symbolizing a permanent, secure divine indwelling. No more departures of the Lord. This reversal, this vision of Ezekiel's, offers hope amid exile, pointing to ultimate renewal. In summary, while Ezekiel sees the glory of the Lord abandon Israel, he sees a later time when the glory of the Lord will return permanently. What does that mean? Let's jump forward to the New Testament. All four Gospels record Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday prior to the crucifixion. We're going to read just one of the Gospels, Mark's.
Mark chapter 11. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, why are you doing this? Say, the Lord needs it, and we'll send it back here shortly. They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. As they untied it, some people standing there asked, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts. He looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12.
The Mount of Olives is located directly east of the East Gate and leads directly to the temple court where he went, which means Jesus is traveling west toward the temple. Many theologians agree that Ezekiel's prophecy in chapter 43, where he saw the glory of the Lord return through the East Gate, is Jesus, the Messiah. He is the glory of the Lord entering the temple court through the East Gate as the fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy. Jesus is moving west toward God. He enters through the East Gate, representing the return of divine glory. He is essentially re-entering the sacred temple space on behalf of humanity. A space you will recall was never inhabited by the cloud or glory of the Lord after being rebuilt. It never returned. Now it's returning. He is the return of the glory of the Lord, only not in a cloud, in the form of man, because he is going to take the place of God dwelling in the temple. The Apostle John describes Jesus this way.
John 1:14, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
Now, Heather said, and made his dwelling among us. That word dwelling in Greek literally means he set up a tabernacle among us. The tabernacle was Moses' precursor to the temple. In other words, Jesus is the fulfillment of God's tabernacling presence. And add to that, the East Gate is then sealed in Ezekiel's vision, symbolizing a permanent, secure relationship. No need to constantly sacrifice. Atonement is complete in Jesus. Jesus' entry fulfilled Ezekiel's prophecy and reversed the Eastern theme of man moving away from God. As the Messiah, he embodies God's presence returning to break the cycle of exile, offering a path back to the Garden of Eden-like relationship with God. Jesus is the way back to God from where sin led us in the East.
John 14:6. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
He is that gate. The East Gate, this is crazy, was sealed in Ezekiel's vision because Jesus is the only gate we need.
John 10:9. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved.
Does that make sense?
Bible bender, mind blown.
Jesus is the answer to Ezekiel's prophecy. There's so many prophecies he fulfills, which was so symbolic to them. And that's why they say when he walks through, blessed is the man who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. They see him as this return of the glory of the Lord. Those who had the eyes to see saw him for what he was, the King of Kings return. All right. Fun fact. This is just a fun fact, not a Bible bender. The East Gate was actually physically sealed and opened several times. In 810, it was closed by Muslim rulers. In 1102, it was then opened by the Crusaders. In 1187, it was sealed by Saladin, another Muslim military leader who, in a later crusade, battled with Richard the Lionheart. This is just all a lot of history. The most recent sealing was in 1541. The most significant and lasting sealing came from Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. He walled it up in 1541, and it has stayed that way. According to tradition, his objective was to prevent the prophesied entry of the Jewish Messiah through the East Gate, as described in Ezekiel 43, which foretells divine glory or the Messiah entering from the East.
As if he could stop God.
So this is the funny thing. A Muslim cemetery was also placed in front of it, potentially to ritually defile the area and deter a priestly Messiah. So they thought they'd add a little.
He won't want to walk over this.
Let's seal it, and then let's put a cemetery there. However, and here's the irony of the whole East Gate, the current East Gate, also called the Golden Gate, that is sealed, this one that he sealed, and cannot be seen on the eastern wall of the Temple Mount, is not the original Nehemiah Ezekiel era East Gate, which is possibly buried 1,000 feet south of the current gate. So he kind of walled up the wrong gate. That means Solomon didn't defile the true East Gate with the cemetery because that gate was most likely built in 520 AD, the one he sealed. So I think that's funny. There's a lot more to these gates than you would think. Back to our story. Scene 5. Just one more, the inspection gate.
Verse 33. Next to him, Malchijah, one of the goldsmiths, made repairs as far as the house of the temple servants and the merchants, opposite the inspection gate, and as far as the room above the corner. And between the room above the corner and the sheep gate, the goldsmiths and merchants made repairs.
So after the inspection gate, we have come full circle around the city of Jerusalem. The Israelites started with the sheep gate and ended at the sheep gate. Well, while Nehemiah has been organizing the building crew, the opposition has been plotting. Stay tuned for the attack in our next episode.
One of the things that excites Susan and I the most about Bible Book Club is getting together every week and being able to read and discuss these episodes.
The other thing we love is how quickly we are growing. So you can do both. You can invite someone to take the journey with you, and at the same time, share Bible Book Club with others so that we can grow even more.
New episodes drop every Monday.